Well, I think a tale of our time would be a story from which we could get something from and we could use it in our lives.
Hello everyone and welcome to Tales of Our Times. This is a show where we discuss the stories that move us, what makes them so meaningful, and why others could or should find meaning in them as well. This is not a spoiler-free show, so bear that in mind as you continue to listen. We tackle books, movies, comics, and more. Where there's a story, there's a reason to read. I'm your host, Amanda Stevens, and joining me today is my guest, Kayla Lin. Welcome, Kayla.
Thank you for having me on this show.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited to talk about the book that you have in mind. But first, is there anything you would like to say to introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Kayla, and I'm currently a student studying foreign languages and literature. So I love good stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. I have to ask this, I guess, because in my own language studies, like I never really read a bunch of stories. How many stories or how many books do you think you read per semester?
Well, it's hard to count, but we don't really read the whole book usually.
Yeah.
We read parts of it, or we read but skip a few chapters.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I would say 10 different texts at least in a semester.
Oh, cool. So yeah, your professor kind of skips around to the parts that they really want to talk about or they think are most interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. So, in my own literature classes, we just had 5 books. Mm-hmm. And then the professor would we would read the whole book, all the way through, and then just spend maybe 3 weeks talking about it. And then we'd move on to the next book.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I think it's nice to read the whole thing too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you could get more clear picture and you wouldn't miss out on details.
Yeah, it's true. But I also there were a lot of books that I wish we could have skipped parts of and then moved on to the next part. It's kind of grueling. Yeah. So do you read a lot more classical literature, or do you think that you read more contemporary stuff as well?
Well, in class we read classicals, but for my free time I like more casual contemporary things.
Yeah, things that are easier to read. It's not the story we're talking about today, but just one last question. What's one of your favorite authors?
I don't think I really have a favorite author. I mean, my taste change from time to time. You know, sometimes I will like sci-fi, and then other times I will probably historical fictions. I don't know.
I get it. Is it so? Then let me change the question. What genre are you really into right now?
Currently, I think I'm more into historical fictions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, then let's get to the story that you actually did bring to talk about today.
Okay.
So, what story have you brought for us today?
So today I want to talk about Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people like me probably only know Gulliver's Travels from, there's the really famous image of I don't think he's a giant man, but he looks giant, and he's being tied down on a beach by a bunch of teeny tiny little people. Yeah. And so if that image sounds familiar to you listeners, that's the book we're talking about today, which is one reason I'm personally excited, because that's almost all that I know about the book, is that at some point the man, I assume he's Gulliver, gets tied down by teeny tiny people on a beach.
Yeah.
I also heard that it's a satire, but I think we could talk about that afterwards. So, I think maybe we just get into it. Would you mind giving us a summary for people like me who are very unfamiliar with it?
Okay, sure. So the image you mentioned is at the start of the book.
Oh.
Because Gulliver is an English sailor, and he encountered a shipwreck on one of his voyage, and when he wakes up, he finds himself on an island called Lilliput, and the people on that island were actually very tiny. So yeah, that's why he looks like a giant on the image you saw. Yeah, so the people there were nice to him, really hospitable, but Yeah, he also helped them fight wars against the enemies because he has this advantage of size.
Yeah, he's giant.
Yeah, but then one day, like, the royal palace was on fire, and he helped by urinating on it.
Oh no.
Yeah. So the kings and queens were offended, and
understandably, it makes a lot of sense. I would be too.
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. So he had to leave.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sorry. So is Gulliver, just what you've said right now, is Gulliver kind of like clueless in his like travels?
Yeah, I would say that he doesn't really know much about other places.
Okay.
I think that's part of the satire because the British Empire was really powerful, and when they go to other colonies, they don't really want to know about other people. It's like they're just bring how they do things to it.
Yeah, I'll bring that up again later. This is a very good little like idea of how it's gonna go. Sorry, please continue.
Yeah, sure. So then on his second voyage, he landed on the island called Brobdingnag, and it was the exact opposite situation on Lilliput. Like, the Brobdingnags were giants.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So at first he was found by a farmer who sold him to, I think, again, the royal place. And yeah, he was kind of like a toy there. Because, he's tiny.
He's teeny.
Yeah.
Yeah, they think he's cute.
Yeah. So, after a while, he started to lose interest in this place. And also because, they're giants and every flaw and imperfection were magnified. And he feels kind of disgusted.
Okay. Like, everything about them is big. Their personalities are big. And also the, like, gross parts or anything else like that is also big.
Yeah.
Okay. So, is he able to just leave?
No, actually, he left when an eagle picked up his cage and kind of just dropped him in the sea, I think.
Oh my god. And he survives.
Yeah, he survived. I mean, he's kind of an unfortunate man, but also very lucky at the same time.
He's just lucky enough.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. So he has a third voyage then after that.
Yeah. On his third voyage, he went to a place called... Sorry.
No, it's okay. Take a time.
I don't know. It's like all the names are really weird and hard to remember.
Yes. Okay, so anyway.
So yeah, on Laputa, like there were a bunch of scientists, I guess. So they were always doing studies, research, and they had come up with a lot of theories that don't really apply in real life.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So like they were trying to be really rational, but then they don't really make any sense.
Oh, they're kind of like, they don't hold any water, we might say. Okay. It sounds very dangerous for a traveler.
Yeah, so eventually Gulliver left again. Okay. And on his fourth voyage, he landed on an island that is inhabited by Houyhnhnms. Which are actually horses.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Just like regular horses?
No. These horses, they have like a ability to think rationally and talk and communicate.
Okay.
But in their own language, of course.
Oh, yeah. Why would we speak horse?
So eventually Gulliver got to know some of the horses, and he learned his language and he had conversation with them. And he really liked their culture. Like, he thinks it's far better than human culture or like British culture. But then after a while, he also find out that there's another kind of creature on the island called Yahoos. And
Yahoos?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay, go on.
At first, he thought that they were kind of a different species of animals, but then he realized that they're just savage-looking humans. And yeah.
So it's a backwards world where the Houyhnhnms, the horses, are the normal, like the enlightened people.
Yes.
And the Yahoos, the humans, are the savage animals.
Yeah, the savage and the slaves to the horses.
Oh, And slaves. Okay, that's great. And by that I mean that sucks. That's terrible.
It's like the complete opposite of our world.
I guess, you know what though, now that I'm thinking about it, like that is, if you were a sentient horse person, that's probably how you would view like what people do to horses, is that it's like a form of like servitude and slavery as well. So okay, how does it end?
Well, the horses eventually discovered that Gulliver is one of the Yahoos.
They finally put it together.
Wearing clothes, so but yeah, so they kind of exiled him because after all, he is a human.
Yeah, they were like, you can't be here anymore.
Yeah, so Gulliver, he was really sad because like he wanted to be one of the humans. But yeah, he eventually went back to England, and he was kind of rejecting his own identity because yeah, after living with the humans, he kind of didn't like his own culture.
Yeah, he now that he's lived in a culture that he thinks is better, all he sees in the British culture is the flaws.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then I guess that's the end. That's the end of it.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Wow. Well, you know what you just did is I just learned the origin of the word Yahoo. For anyone else who was listening to this and was like, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, the first time I heard it, I was like, Yahoo?
Yeah, I just figured it out. I admit I had to Google it because I was like, oh my God, is that where the word comes from? Because I remember like my grandparents calling crazy people like, you bunch of yahoos. So like, okay, that's cool. It comes literally from Gulliver's Travels. Yeah. So wow, what a wild book.
Yeah, it is.
I didn't know that he had 4 trips.
Yeah.
I had assumed, like, because like I said, the only thing I knew was that picture. I had always assumed that the first image was the whole book. Like, he just lives in the little tiny people world. But now that you've told it to me, I can see exactly how it was meant to be like a satire.
Yeah.
Of at least British travelers, if not the British Empire, like you mentioned as well. So, wow. Okay. Then I guess I'll move on to the next question.
Okay.
What was your first experience with this book?
Actually, like, I read a children's version when I was, I don't know, maybe in elementary school. And yeah, I saw that picture when Gulliver was tied down by tiny people. And I think the book only mentioned that first part of his travels.
Right.
Yeah. I only got to like actually read the whole book when I was in an English literature class last semester.
Oh, okay. So this was like fresh for you.
Yes.
Were you excited to revisit it, or was it kind of like I think sometimes, you know, like you read a book as a kid and it's like fun and it's light and it's fantastical, and then you read it as an adult, or you read like the real version of it. Like for many Americans, it's the story of Pocahontas, and you're like, oh, they are not the same. Oh, the real one is much worse.
Well, I wouldn't say worse. I think it's fun, but then you have to have a lot of background knowledge to really understand it.
Yeah. So it's one of those like, oh, there's a lot more to this.
Yes.
Now. Okay, then let's go into, why do you care so much about Gulliver's Travels? Like, what really stuck with you?
I mean, it was a satire, but I am not really into that part. Maybe because like it's kind of from a far away country that it doesn't really relate to me.
Yeah, of course.
But the parts with the culture shock, I think that's something I've experienced many times. Because when I was younger, my dad worked abroad and we had to move around a lot to different countries. So yeah, I had a lot of different experiences with different people that are just so different from Taiwan.
And I guess there may be some people out there who don't know, but culture shock is a word for the feeling of encountering or living in a culture that is very different from you, and kind of like the alienating feeling that can have. So very much like what Kayla just said, like you were Gulliver trying to make sense of like a world around you that you don't understand.
Yes.
Or you do understand, I guess, but not 100%.
I mean, yeah, sometimes things are really just not the same.
They just don't click at all.
Yeah.
Was there like one world then in Gulliver's Travels, or one experience that like really spoke to you above the others? Since you have this like personal connection to like, yeah, I was also a traveler, and there was a lot of times where things didn't make sense to me.
Well, there was a part in, I think in Lilliput, where the tiny people were just taking out Gulliver's stuff and asking him what this is. Like, it would be a really ordinary thing that people carry in England.
Yeah.
But then to the Lilliputians, these are completely new. And it just reminded me, like when I was younger abroad, my classmates would always be asking me about what I have. Like maybe I brought a snack and they've never seen it. And they were just very curious about it.
Like the explaining of like your normal things.
Yeah.
And like made new for these people who've never seen them.
Yes.
Ugh. That actually got me too. Like I felt that before. So, okay, then taking that out a little bit, why do you think that Gulliver's Travels should be considered a tale of our time?
Well, I think Gulliver wasn't like really that open-minded when he first started traveling. But like, as he has seen much more different places, he started to learn, and the things he learned kind of changed him. Because like when he first started his journeys, and he kind of just laughs at things he thinks is not what he's used to. But then he gradually starts to learn, and the things he sees starts to influence him. And so he kind of changes the way he perceives the world. Like when he's with the Hunims, he learned a different culture, and he actually reflects and thinks that this is better than his own culture. And he starts to have this sense of despise for himself, his own culture. And yeah, he kind of went through a phase of self-rejection. I'm not saying that people should, dislike your own culture. I mean, there's something good about every culture.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's just that when people travel or when they meet new people, they could always take something back to their homes.
Yeah. Well, and I think to like jump off of that as well, like in that sense, like it does help that Gulliver is kind of like I asked at the very beginning, clueless at the start. Like you said, like he doesn't really try to connect with these people.
Yeah.
He views himself as like better or bigger. I think that that's a really common experience a lot of people might have, even accidentally, when you encounter a new culture, to either like to be totally clueless or to not on purpose, but kind of only see the ways in which you don't like that culture as compared to your own. Versus like towards the end, he gets to the Hunims and he starts to actually think about the culture and find things that he really likes about it, and finally is able to appreciate for like what it is and kind of grow as a person. Yeah. Though like you said, hopefully not into for other people, like you don't need to like you don't have to despise yourself.
Yeah.
We are almost out of time today. So on to the last question. If you could give Gulliver's Travels a one-sentence subtitle of your own, what would that be?
That's a really good question. I think I would say opening your mind through traveling. Because you know how you can be in different places, you can move around, but your mind stays the same. And I think that is a part of the meaning of traveling. So I think you should really stay open-minded and allow your experience to change you and to make you better.
Yeah, definitely. And, become enlightened at the end of it.
Yes.
We hope. I'm really happy to know more about this book and kind of learn the fantastical nature behind it, as well as the deeper meaning. I think that's very interesting. I hope that inspires some other listeners out there to go give this book a read. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for today. But thank you so much for joining me, Kayla. I've really enjoyed our talk.
Thank you. Me too.
Thank you for joining us today on Radio Taiwan International. This has been Tales of Our Time. I'm your host, Amanda Stevens, with my guest, Kayla Lin. I hope that everyone out there enjoyed learning more about Gulliver's Travels, opening your mind through traveling, a tale of our time. We'll see you next time.